By the way, it's getting hot in there, so I gotta turn the air on.
Too much work being performed, probably.
Okay, I see all 5 board members. I don't have video for Director Grace, but that's probably coming soon. Is anyone missing? I don't think so. Let's convene our regular board meeting for February 10th, 2022. There's a quick summary of actions taken during our closed session that we just concluded, and there's no reportable action. And we can all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Ready? Begin. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to
and
the
to the republic in which it stands,
one nation,
under God,
God,
indivisible,
and justice for all.
with
Liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. May I have a motion from one of my colleagues to approve our tonight's agenda?
To approve as presented.
Second.
Motion by Director Quinn, second by Vice President Carlin. Roll call vote. Ms. McEwen, please.
Director Grace,
Aye.
Director Jensen,
Aye.
Director Quinn,
Aye.
Director Carlin,
Aye.
I'm sorry, and Vice President Carlin and President Han.
Aye, as well. That motion carries 5-0. Our agenda is approved. Public comments on non-agenda items. Ms. McEwen.
Get my thing here. Members of the public may address the board on matters not listed on this agenda. The board cannot take action on any item that is not on the agenda. The board or staff may briefly respond to statements made or questions posed, or may ask questions for clarification. These items may also be referred to staff or scheduled on a future agenda. There will be a separate opportunity for public comment for each item on the agenda. I do not have any hands.
Very well. We'll move on to our consent calendar. Back to you, Ms. McEwen.
Consent items are considered routine and are intended to be acted upon in one motion without discussion. During this portion of the meeting, the consent calendar will be read aloud. Prior to approval, the president will give the board, staff, and public the opportunity to pull any item for discussion. The remaining calendar will be acted upon. Any pulled items will then be heard and acted upon individually. A, approve minutes of the January 13, 2022 regular board meeting. B, accept quarterly investment report as of December 31, 2021. C, accept register of warrants for January 2022.
Thank you, ma'am. Would any member of the public wish to pull an item from that consent calendar? If you so, click the raise hand on your Zoom.
There are no hands.
Any members of the board like to pull an item?
No.
Hearing none, I'll accept a motion to approve our consent calendar items.
Mr. President, I'll move to approve the consent calendar items as read.
Second.
Motion by Director Grace, second by Vice President Carlin. Roll call vote, Ms. McEwen.
Director Grace,
Aye.
Director Jensen,
Aye.
Director Quinn,
Aye.
Vice President Carlin,
Aye.
President Han.
Aye, that motion carries 5-0. Thank you, everyone. Disclosures by the board of directors. Ms. McEwen again.
Board members are asked to disclose any outside communications with individuals and organizations that have an action item on this agenda that pertains directly to them or their specific personal or private interests, and which communication is not included or disclosed in the agenda package, so that all interested persons have an equal opportunity to express and represent their interests.
Anyone? Nope.
Nothing.
Thank you.
No.
Thank you. Brings us to item 11, action items. Adopt resolution 21/22-25, authorizing the continued use of teleconferencing accessibility procedures for public meetings. Mr. Davis, please.
Thank you, President Han. We have been through this process several times now, but state law requires us to make findings of a continued emergency in order to meet remotely. While the pandemic may be lessening. We're not out of the woods yet, so we do recommend approval of, and because our prior resolution has expired, in order to have this meeting and meetings in the next 30 days, we do need to re-up our findings of an emergency that requires these remote meetings. So we do recommend approval of the resolution as presented.
Thank you, sir. Comments from the public?
Yes, we have one hand, Jiva.
Jiva, welcome in. How are you tonight?
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Doing well. Page 13 of 11A on the agenda item, the last paragraph and sentence basically says the district monitors attendance via teleconference as well as email conference and on the website and continues on. So does this now mean that you are monitoring email correspondence in case people have technical difficulties and can't speak via Zoom? Thank you.
Thank you, Jiva. Any other public comments?
There are no more hands.
All right, board, Director Grace.
Do you need a motion, sir? Or?
I'm just board comments right now on action item A.
No comments for me, sir. Thank you.
Director Jensen.
Just one comment. At what point are we going to revisit this and start talking about in-person meetings again? Or maybe a hybrid of both in-person and Zoom?
Mr. President, maybe I can address that. We continue to monitor and follow what is going on in the COVID-19 world and the rate of folks being affected and infected. And it still is, I think, legitimate to want to lessen the potential that any of us are contributors to the spread of COVID-19. That really is at the heart of it. I guess I would answer it is dependent upon those trends, what, if anything, the state tells us to do. And it is, again, perhaps over cautious, but I do think it's for everyone's benefit and safety.
Because it sounds like the state's going to start getting rid of the mask mandate the end of this month, early March. That's what I've heard.
They had a February 15th extension, unless there was something even newer that I missed, but I think that was the date.
All right. Nothing further.
Thank you, sir. Director Quinn.
No questions or comments.
Vice President Carlin.
I don't have any questions.
Thank you, sir. I like Director Jensen's question. I would prefer going back into person. I don't want to be responsible for causing a spread. Mr. Malinen, how soon before our next regular board meeting could we decide to not do it by teleconferencing and to do it in person?
Well, we can take another look and go back and see what, if any, other changes have been occurring. I think we've had a number of spikes. The most recent that was related to the Omicron was more significant than the first two that we had. The first being in the summer of 2020 and the second the end of 2020, and then this one had hit. So we can go back and we can take a look and see if that data suggests that we can get back in person. So be glad to do that.
I appreciate that, sir. In the meantime, I think it is prudent to continue this these procedures. I'll ask for a motion then, please.
I move that the board adopt resolution number 21/22-52, authorizing the general manager to continue to implement and utilize teleconference accessibility procedures to conduct public meetings pursuant to Assembly Bill 361.
Second.
Motion by Director Quinn, second by Vice President Carlin. Ms. McEwen, roll call vote.
Director Grace,
Aye.
Director Jensen,
Aye.
Director Quinn,
Aye.
Vice President Carlin,
Aye.
President Han.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Action item Bravo, approve employment agreement with Daniel Suttles as Chief of Police / Director of Public Safety. Mr. Davis.
Actually, Mr. President, while I did prepare the report, the bulk of the work done on this was the general manager and the assistant to the general manager. So I will let them present the report.
Nice deflection. Go ahead, Mr. Malinen.
And I'm not going to pass it to Christie. As you know, we've had the vacancy since Tim Melanson resigned. We've been fortunate to have Jeff Kermode in an interim role as Chief of Police, but we did go through a recruitment and a selection process. I think the recruitment garnered a number of qualified candidates. We put them through a gauntlet of panels made up of peer professionals, police chiefs, members of our community, district staff, and lastly, our own board of directors. And from that rose Dan Suttles. And so we have proceeded to make him a conditional offer, which he has accepted. He has had his background completed. As the board knows, and perhaps the public knows, there are a number of steps that go along with it, but we have also negotiated this agreement with him, which he has accepted and executed. And so we are positioned to have a new chief of police, I'm sorry. The noted items that are in the agreement, that are in the staff report, the at-will status, his salary, severance clause in the event that he is terminated without cause, the standard benefits that go to department heads, and lastly, a relocation consideration, so that we will contribute towards he and his family moving to Bear Valley Springs or the surrounding area, and hopefully he can address, but that he's shown a keen interest in becoming a part of the community. So with that, I would recommend that the board approve the agreement as presented.
Thank you, sir. Comments from the public?
Yes. Jiva.
Hello, Jiva.
Hello, thank you. Reading through there, I noticed, and we had discussion about unmarked cars before. We have 3, and I was curious as if GM can answer why we have to have an unmarked car when we would naturally reimburse them based upon IRS standards for mileage and wear and tear. And then the other thing is the panel members of the community. I was wondering, Bill, how you chose that panel, because that would have been an interesting one. I think for many of our residents might have been interested in participating in that. So I was curious about that. And then the deferred compensation plan. You have CalFIREs with the benefits that the government provides that are already contributed and matched. And then you have the management benefits salary, 50% of the IRS specified base maximum. And that seems rather nice. You know, where I worked, when they did away with all the retirements, we were lucky that we got 8 and 10% match contributions. So it seems rather nice. And I'm just wondering, when we talk about not paying our folks enough to bring them here, that seems kind of lucrative pull in. If you could expand on why it is at such a high rate, 50%. Thank you.
Mr. President, with respect to the first issue or question related to a take-home car, one of the things that is even more unique for police officers is the amount of gear that is needed as they go to a situation or a call for service. So that, from my experience, is trunk full. And part of having vehicles available for law enforcement is that they can respond immediately to a scene. They don't have to spend time going back and forth to pick up a different vehicle, so they can be more expedient to a scene. So that's part of the car. With respect to the panel, as I recall, we were looking at people that had been engaged on DPAC or at the association as an example. So those were a couple of the kind of criteria that we used and selected a couple of folks. And lastly, with respect to deferred compensation, that is currently a part of our management package. I would say, hopefully it is a part of what does help make us an attractive place for people to come and then also to stay. So we're hopeful that, Mr. Suttles will be here for a long time, but it is a standard benefit at the CSD.
Thank you for the questions, Jiva, and thank you for the response, Mr. Malinen. Are there other hands up in the public?
Yes, Kathy Kinnear.
Take it away, Kathy. Welcome. Good evening.
Thank you. I'm just so happy that we can move forward in filling this important position here in Bear Valley. And I welcome the opportunity to meet with him. So I hope you'll arrange a coffee as you did, I think, with Bill Malin, not Bill, you did with the chief. So the previous chief. So I hope that happens, and I am excited to meet him. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. More hands?
There are no more hands.
Members of the board, Director Grace.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I am very enthusiastic about our choice here, and we had a great closed session interview and a lot of deliberation, and ultimately was one of the rare occasions where we were enthusiastically unanimous in our selection. And I think we've made a great choice here, and I look forward to working with Mr. Suttles and want to welcome him aboard. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. Director Jensen.
I have nothing to add.
Thank you, sir. Director Quinn.
No comment at this point.
Thank you, sir. Vice President Carlin.
Same sentiments as Director Grace. I can't wait to actually start working with soon-to-be Chief Suttles. That's all I have.
Echo all of those comments, and thank you. It's time for a motion. Board, what do you think?
Move the Board of Directors approve an employment agreement with Daniel B. Suttles as Chief of Police, Public Safety Director.
Second.
Motion by Vice President Carlin, second by Director Quinn. Roll call vote, Ms. McEwen.
Director Grace,
Aye.
Director Jensen,
Aye.
Director Quinn,
Aye.
Vice President Carlin,
Aye.
President Han.
Aye. That motion carries 5-0. 5-0. Welcome, Mr. Suttles.
Mr. President,
Yes.
if I might, and just taking a page from Ms. Kinnear's comments, I was hopeful that we might be able, through our use of technology, to actually introduce Mr. Suttles to our Bear Valley Springs community. We have, as you know, in this agreement, a start date of February 28th. So we're only a few weeks away, but this is before that date, one of the few times that people may have to see Mr. Suttles. And I would just tell you, it's been a pleasure to just communicate with him, to experience the excitement and the enthusiasm that he has for taking on this role. And I'm confident he's going to do a great job for our community. And with that, I'd like to invite him, if we've got him, Christy, to show himself and to say hello, and to know that we're looking forward to working with him.
He should be on.
Wonderful. That's great. Welcome, Chief Suttles.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, awesome. Hey, well, thank you very much. You know, I'm listening to all the kind things that everybody says, and it's truly humbling, you know, to hear people talk about you and with such enthusiasm. So I do share that enthusiasm. I'm very excited, and I wanted to thank everybody with the CSD because they've made this experience very easy. I mean, this is one of those things where you're competing for something that you want very badly, and it can be very stressful. But everybody that I have talked to and gotten to know over the last few months, I've already started a relationship with people within a community, people that I'll be working with, people I'll be working for. And so I'm very excited to get to know those individuals even more. And this is a successful team. You know, when I look at the police department that exists there now, I see successes. I see successes with the community and the relationship that they have. And I hope that I can build on that, you know, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to move there very, very quickly so that I can become part of this community, because I think that's how I might be able to contribute to building on the successes of the relationship that we already have. So I'm excited to be part of that team. I'm also excited to be part of the police department and part of the operations that are taking place at the gate. If you look at Bear Valley Springs, they enjoy a very low crime rate, and that's purposeful. That happens through hard work. And I feel like I'm being drafted onto an NFL team that won the Super Bowl last year. This is a championship team, and I'm coming on board. So that makes me feel really, really good. And the last thing I wanted to mention that I'm excited about is, and this is something I've talked to the board of directors about during our interview, is that one of the reasons why I was so drawn to Bear Valley Springs in the first place is because of the values and the traditions that are so evident. When I first started the process, I drove up there and I looked around, and to see all the signs in the yards talking about the pride that they had in their police department, that's something that you don't see everywhere. You know, those are the values and the traditions that the residents of this community are proud of. And I think it's a rare opportunity that I have that I can be a part of that. So I'm looking forward to it. So thank you to everybody again. And to Catherine's point, she was saying that she wanted to get to a chance to meet me. You definitely will. I already have some thoughts in my mind of how we can make that happen. And that's my goal. You know, I need to come there, I need to settle in. And then once that happens, I want to get out and meet as many people as I possibly can. So thank you to everyone. And I'm very excited to start.
Thank you for all those kind words, Mr. Suttles. Welcome aboard. Welcome aboard. Wonderful. Okay. Let's see. We approved that 5-0. Shall we move on to the item C? Anybody else on Chief? Okay. Item C, authorize second amendment to professional services agreement with Davey Resource Group to provide registered professional forester services for the CALFIRE Fuel Reduction Grant Program. Mr. Malinen.
Mr. President, members of the board, this is our second amendment. As you may recall, back when we initially made the application, which was back in 2019, we had estimated what it would take for the forester to oversee this $1 million grant, and the interaction we've realized has been more than originally estimated. And at this point, we are winding down on this grant. So we will not have any more logging. And I know some folks certainly are interested in that. However, I'll get into that later. But we have been in contact with the forester and the logger, and we believe that then this is the end of the project for them. They still do have some work, and I'd be glad to explain some of the procedural things that are required of the forester. May not have been initially contemplated in the estimate, but we believe they've resulted in a better, more accountable project. And so we would recommend the amendment adding $10,000 to their contract to finish out this project.
Thank you, sir. Questions, comments from the public?
Me.
Mr. President, I would just make a note under the motion. It is actually the second amendment as opposed to the first.
Thank you, sir. That's the second amendment. Got it. Public, Christie?
Kathy Kinnear.
Hello.
Hello, thank you, Bill. I haven't been paying a lot of attention to this project, but I happened to notice a huge pile of logs along Upper Valley Road. Is that from this grant? And are those going to be removed or are they still? I'm not sure really what they're going to do to finish up this.
Yeah, Mr. President, I appreciate the question. They're going to be converted. So yes, those are logs from the mountain. That is a fraction of what you'll be seeing. Now that the logging is effectively stopped or terminated, the continuing transport off of the top of the mountain down to our wastewater treatment plant where they will be chipped. So we're going to reconfigure them and turn them into chips, which we intend to use at the wastewater treatment plant to beautify the landscape there, as well as to the extent they exist, bring some to our property here around the transfer station and use them to beautify CSD properties. And so at the end of all of this, the goal is there will be no logs. And this, if you recall, Ms. Kinnear, and for the board members, back when we initially started this, our goal was to reuse and to not have logs hauled out of the community. And we are sticking with it. And we're going to achieve that. So it'll all be put to use here.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the question, Kathy. More members from the public.
Jiva.
Hi, Jiva.
Thank you. Hello. So I asked before when we did the first amendment, where's the itemization? I understand that you said that it was estimated in 2019, but once we got it, there would have been some detail from Davey Group. And then we gave him 10,000 extra, and now it's another 15. And that wasn't that long ago that we did the 10,000. So this is now an increase of more than 50% of the original cost. And you have to ask yourself why now. And the logger is removing less trees than the forester told the residents. Drive up here and look at all the hillsides and one sees still tons of trees on properties that were to have the piles removed, the logs, the dead and dying trees. And so some of them are being hauled off and set aside on each property, ready to be hauled down to be chipped. But you look up and down those hillsides and you see a lot of logs remaining in place. And so I'm wondering about them being remaining when they were basing their cost on high or low density. And some of those may have changed. And I'm wondering if they ever readdress like, okay, well, we couldn't get to this area, so it's not a high density cost now, it's a low density 1 to 10 trees per acre. So I really appreciated that if you can look into that, Bill. And the logger has refused to cut down trees that are deemed dangerous or too close to the home, as I've said before. And I understand safety, but then again, it's a misleading to the property owners when they're told that these ones would be removed. And my neighbor just had to spend $1,000 on one that the logger said he refused to cut down. The other one that he refused to cut down is going to fall across the road here one of these days, like many of the others have. And it seems that this logger hasn't had the adequate equipment to log these mountains as the previous loggers have, because he told me more than once that the equipment isn't safe to use on certain soil conditions and whatnot. And I believe him and I care about safety and all that. But our belief was we got a logger that could do the job that was quoted for. So if we're fortunate enough to get another grant, I'm hoping that we'll make sure that we have a logger that has equipment that can do what they say they can do. And we'll be honest up front and say, no, that's too steep a terrain, too soft, whatever. I'm not going to put that in my bid. So I'm concerned about that and would like to know that up front and hope it gets addressed before all this is done. Thank you, Bill. And
There are no more hands.
Thank you, Christine.
No more hands.
Concerned a question for me to answer.
Your first part of that, Bill, was cut off. Please repeat.
I'm not sure I caught a question for me to answer.
Oh, Okay. Thank you, Jiva. Right, that's the public, members of the board, Mr. Director Grace.
Bill, are we getting any kind of work product at the end of this from the forester? In other words, are they doing daily reports? Are they doing a summary report?
So
And then I guess the fundamental question, which is similar to the members of the public, I mean, are we going to get more of these, or are they basically done? We're going to get more change orders from them.
no, that won't happen. But in answer to the question, part of the procedures that we implemented at the beginning of this has the forester making estimates of each individual property and the level of treatment. And so there's an initial literal visual boots on ground inspection. There is then a second boots on the ground with the logger. And so you may recall, but that, we had our forester on board before the logger selection was complete. And so they've made a subsequent so that they are in concurrence about the acreage and the level of treatment. And they literally sign the documentation. The logger goes to work then. So we've created a preliminary notice to proceed. That's, based on having a concurrence. And then, as you may know, the forester is handling all the CEQA documentation that requires communication and contact with the property owner. The property owner has to then provide us with a right of entry form. We have to then send off the CEQA documents to the state, get them approved, and then when they return and we have the right of entry from the property owner, then we have a final notice to proceed to the logger. So we effectively locked in the pricing, subject then to these two pieces of documentation coming in, and then we say go ahead. When they're done, they let the logger or the forester know, and he then goes out and inspects and executes then a notice of completion. That triggers that we would pay them based on the invoice and that previous number. So part of what I'm hopefully impressing on you is there are a number of steps that involve the work product of the forester being on site and doing that. And then certainly we have invoices to match up the level of activity they've been involved in. So we have a very large binder of all of these documents, literally for every parcel that has been treated up there and or is to be treated. So I hope that helps answer that question.
That does. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Director Jensen?
I have no questions.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Director Quinn?
A question for Bill, and this is sort of a follow-up to what Jiva Freevert had asked. Are you, in your capacity as the responsible party for everything that happens or fails to happen in Bear Valley Springs Community Services District, are you satisfied that both the logger and the forester were totally capable of handling this job appropriately? Should there be another grant request made and fulfilled?
Yes, Mr. President, Mr. Quinn, I am. And part of perhaps what we can improve on, and I do think Arrowhead Enterprises, which is the logger, and Vic Leader, the owner and the main guy, many times I've heard that they've been very responsive, that they've talked to every homeowner on to whose property they're going to treat. I do better understand now that there are slopes that logs are left on, and part of that in the world of the forestry scientists or loggers, part of that is just leaving as part of the natural habitat and as a result of the steepness of some slopes. So I've driven up there as well, and I do see some of that, and I have inquired several times about it. And both of those individuals came highly recommended. I think they have done a good job. We may be able to communicate better about expectations. So, you know, a property owner who thinks that these trees will be not only cut, but removed, and everything will look like what they might have as an image in their head. And then when that doesn't occur, the logger has failed. That level of expectation, maybe we need to work on in terms of communicating in the future for, you know, hopefully more to come. But I am confident that they know what they're doing, and they have done a good job.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Director Quinn. Vice President Carlin.
Yeah, a couple of comments. Bill, I still don't think you've actually answered the question that Jiva brought up, because I do agree with Jiva, and I agree with Director Grace's comments. When we put something out to contract, you know, it's up to them to do their due diligence to give us a quote. And it should be a hard quote. You know, maybe that's the lesson learned. You know, it's a hard quote. You take the car to go get painted and they tell you it's going to be $5 grand. Well, and they give you the scope of work that they're going to perform. And if they don't do anything different than what's on the scope, then you should pay them. Now, these are two experienced companies, you know, the forester and the logger. It's not the first rodeo to them, so they should be pretty accurate on whatever quote or estimate that they're providing, where it shouldn't have to cost us anything additional unless their scope of work is changed. Those are my comments.
Mr. President, and I understand that comment. I would respond by saying, you know, the initial bringing on board of the forester was within what we had budgeted and or estimated when we made the grant. Subsequently, and I'll take the blame for that, but I'll take the credit as well. I think the procedures that we have implemented, like I said, I think makes for a more thorough and more accountable process, but it burdened the forester. That, you know, they I don't believe had anticipated that level of activity, as I've described them coming out literally on 3 different occasions, times however many parcels, et cetera, and the paperwork involved with it. So in response, I think that is a part of what's occurred.
Oh, I would just, hopefully those are lessons learned for the next grant that we might get, that, you know, if he has to go up there 5 times instead of 3, that's his problem, not ours. You know, then he should put that in his numbers. So sometimes, you know, it's kind of like hunting. Sometimes you get the bear, sometimes the bear gets you, you know, and the bear got us for an extra $10,000. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you, sir. I have nothing to add. Would any of my colleagues wish to push this forward with a motion?
I move that the Board of Directors authorize the second amendment to the professional services agreement with Davey Resource Group to increase the budget by $10,000 to total not to exceed the amount of $70,000.
Second.
I have a motion by Director Quinn and a second by Vice President Carlin. Ms. McEwen?
Director Grace,
Aye.
Director Jensen,
Aye.
Director Quinn,
Aye.
Vice President Carlin,
Aye.
President Han.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Item Delta, approve purchase of wastewater treatment plant work truck. Mr. Malinen, please.
Board, as you know, we had budgeted for the replacement of the existing vehicle utilized by the wastewater plant, which is a 1998 Toyota Tacoma. I think it's in the mileage of 230,000. nonetheless, we did budget for this, a maximum or $3,000, and I'll give credit to Jason Parks for continuing to work with the vendor, who this is through Sourcewell. So we're talking about it is a joint powers. We can go through them. They've met all the bidding requirements under the statutes, and we can tag on to the prices that they've received. And in this case, actually done a little better because of Jason's work to get it down such that there would not be anything more. I would tell you, with the increasing costs of vehicles and pickup trucks, it was higher. And so he's continued to interact with them, and they have brought back this delivered, or maybe I'll say final cost. I think it will be delivered as well, but nonetheless, with all taxes, everything included, out the door to us for $30,000. So we are on our budget, and it is I'm sure an appreciated tool for the wastewater division, and we would recommend approval and purchase.
Thank you for the report, sir. Is there questions or comments from the public?
Yes. Kara Cooper.
Hello, Kara. Good evening. Welcome in.
Thank you. How are you doing?
Doing great.
I just have one comment. Since the previous truck went incredible amount of miles, did we even look into trying to replace it with the same model, even though it might cost more up front, but the backside might be better? Just thought, there's no question about we need one, but maybe it's better to spend a little more up front and get a better vehicle that will last 200,000 miles. Anyway, that's all I have.
Thank you, Kara.
Okay, Kathy Kinnear.
Hello again, Kathy.
Hi. So I noticed this is from Future Ford of Sacramento. Does the price include delivery here? Or do you have to go get it in Sacramento?
Mr. President, my understanding was it was delivered, but if I am wrong, Jason, then we got to get it. I thought we talked a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, no, that's delivery included.
Excellent
There you
question.
go.
Delivery is included. Appreciate that. Any more comments from the public?
There are none.
Thank you, Christy. To the Board of Directors, Director Grace.
Bill, is there any provision in Sourcewell for local purchase? In other words, presumably Sourcewell is doing your bid and they're going to spit out the best price, but it'd be nice to know if we had a vendor in Kern County that could provide this. I mean, if it was $1,000 more, $2,000 more, I'd love to spend that money locally rather than send that money to Sacramento, the tax dollars I'm talking about. So just a question.
And excellent question. I think in my experience, when a state entity or joint powers is going out, it is they're letting all of them bid, so to speak, right? But somebody wins, and so part of driving the price down, I think, in a bidding context is that they're going to have more than just the 50 that the state of California is going to buy. They're going to get another 50 from the other 1,000 entities around the state who might be looking for a truck. And my answer is, I think for the most part, it goes to those dealers that have been awarded the bid. Now, we're trying to get a pickup truck. If we were trying to get some other type of equipment, it may be possible, but we will look again because it's an excellent question, and I understand the desire to try to keep our dollars as local as we can.
Yeah, and I guess my question is there an algorithm in Sourcewell, just for information, if nothing else, to say, okay, here, we've sourced all these different dealerships. This is the best price, but here's what you'd pay if you went to Bakersfield. So something to look. I'd love to look into it because like I say, we want to get the best price for the district, but we also want to support local business, or this board member does anyway. So
Understood.
Mr. President, Dawn Smith has something to contribute to this question.
Okay,
Sourcewell is bid throughout the entire state of California. Unfortunately, our local dealers were not willing to come down on the price as we were able to do so with Sacramento.
And I definitely appreciate that. I guess the question would be, to what degree, I mean, they may not be willing to come down on the price, but it would be good to have that presented to us as an option. And maybe we don't go with the low bidder, maybe we go with the local source if it's a few $1,000s, a few $100s or whatever. So that's my only point. I'll stop talking.
no, appreciate it, Director Grace. Thanks, Dawn. Director Quinn Jensen is next.
Mr. Malinen, does Sourcewell comply with all of the requirements from District Code 1-8-7 as far as putting out publications for bid and things like that?
So my reaction is yes, that it is compliant with state purchasing. So what we're able to do via the statutes is to purchase under those issued bids. So if you imagine, rather than us having to put out our own bid package, those bid packages have already been prepared by the state for these types of purchases. And then someone has gone through a formalized bidding process to get that contract. And so then we're able to piggyback onto that. Your specific sites of our code, I can't see them in front of me, but it is satisfactory to the code and or to the state statutes.
Okay. And then my second question is, just looking at the pictures of the old truck, what happened to it? It's in awfully bad shape, and I would just hope that we're going to treat the new one much better.
Certainly our staff knows to treat our equipment with respect and care. I can't comment on what's happened over the last 23 years of that vehicle being around and why it may be in the condition it's in, but certainly we're going to take good care of our.
Okay. Nothing else.
Thank you, sir. Director Quinn.
I have no question or comment. Thank you.
Vice President Garland.
I didn't see, I guess when Sourcewell sourced this, he sourced all brands, or is it just Ford?
Honestly, I didn't personally go looking at it. I don't know if Jason has an answer for you.
Yes, at the time we started looking at what was available, what was practical to our needs, what was kind of comparable to what we were replacing. And we felt the Ford Ranger met those needs. We didn't feel it was realistic to suggest we're going to replace a Toyota Tacoma with a F350 or an F450. We've seen that being unrealistic for our needs. The Chevy Colorados or the GMC Canyons were not available right now through Sourcewell. They're just, the vehicles aren't available. And so our research led us down the road of the Ford Ranger reviews. Just the benefit of it seems to be the ideal candidate for replacement.
Good answer. Thank you.
10 years ago, I'd maybe be more concerned about the quality of Japanese cars versus US cars, but I think US cars have picked up their quality. I have nothing else to add. Call for a motion.
Mr. President, I move the Board of Directors authorize the General Manager to execute a contract with Future Ford of Sacramento for purchase of a 2021 Ford Ranger Super Cab 4x4 truck in the amount of $30,000.
Second.
Did I have a second from Mr. Jensen? Oh, thank you, sir. Motion by Director Grace, second by Director Jensen. Roll call vote, please, Ms. McEwen.
Director Grace,
Aye.
Director Jensen,
Aye.
Director Quinn,
Aye.
Vice President Carlin,
Aye.
President Han.
Aye, motion carries 5-0. Take care of your new truck.
Yes, sir. Mr. President,
Yes.
and perhaps everyone out there watching, but us as well, I see Mr. Suttles himself has joined us in the flesh, so to speak. So I just want to say hello, and for those who are looking to see what you look like, here you are.
Let's put
Mug
it,
shot.
All right.
No,
Thank
he
you,
was
guys.
literally
Thank you very
moving.
much.
He was moving.
Yeah, your
I'll
picture
get used
wasn't,
to the I'll get used to the Zoom meetings and start clicking the right buttons here pretty soon. So thank you very much.
right, okay. Hopefully no one objects to that departure from our agenda, right? No, well done. Item Echo, approve agreement with Axon Enterprise Incorporated for body worn camera system. Chief Kermode, that has your name on it.
Good evening, President Han and members of the board. You have the staff report in front of you on the Axon camera system. I know that the proposal stirred up some interest on social media today. So I'd kind of like to break my presentation into two parts. And the first part I'd like to talk about is the actual body worn camera system. As mentioned in the report, when I came to Bear Valley the first time, Bear Valley had already been using body worn cameras. I believe they were the first ones in Kern County to do so, first generation cameras. And when I came on as chief, before anything else, the equipment that the officers wanted at that time was to replace those cameras. And we did so. The officers saw the benefit of the cameras when they were still being resisted in other agencies. So they've been using those cameras since probably late in 2015, at least the ones that are still working. Things have progressed a long way since 2015. The cameras they're using now, most of them, the batteries will not last through a full 12-hour shift. What you have to understand about the body worn cameras is they're actually running all the time. And the reason they have to do that is because when an officer hits record, it actually buffers back and captures 20 seconds, 30 seconds, 40 seconds, whatever you've set as that buffer period. So you don't just get the camera turning on. You see what happens moments before the camera is turned on. So those cameras are running. And what that means, if an officer works a 12-hour shift, the camera may not last through the end of the shift, meaning that a critical incident may not be captured on camera. The second thing is the current system really isn't a system. The officers have to manually upload the footage from those cameras into a portable hard drive, depending on the number of recordings. We purchase 2, possibly 3 portable hard drives in a year. The individual officers are responsible for uploading that footage. We went through a period of months prior to my arrival here where the computer was not talking to the camera, and we had a huge backlog of body cam footage. The portable hard drives are just that. There's no software for the management of that video footage. There is no security features to it. There's no authentication features to it. Compared to the Axon camera system, which is used nationwide, with that system, the cameras have a full body life, a full shift battery life. They're automatically uploaded when placed into the docking station. They're uploaded into cloud storage. Probably more importantly is the software management system that goes with that storage, that you can actually go back and search by officer, search by date, search by time. You can actually find the footage. One of the issues that's come up in past internal affairs investigations is the challenge for the investigator to get back to where the footage is, because it's just a hard drive full of files. Additionally, the software authenticates the video. There's no need for a forensic evidence person to have to come in and testify that the footage that's being presented in court is the actual original footage. There's no ability to edit it. Currently, if we have to produce footage for a court case, we have to find the appropriate footage. We then have to copy the footage onto a CD. The CD is then sent to the DA, to the court, to whoever. That's all automated within the Axon system, so human hands aren't dealing with the duplication of the tapes. So those are just some of the advantages to the Axon camera system. Interestingly, about a week ago, I went back and found it. The National Institute of Justice published a body-worn camera study from the Phoenix, Arizona Police Department. It was published December 6th, 2021. And comparing the officers who wore and used the body-worn cameras versus the officers who weren't using the body-worn cameras, the most statistically significant finding they made is that citizen complaints were reduced by 96%. You can't get much more significant than that. What I found in my own personal experience is that probably 90% of the time, the body-worn cameras capture the event in a manner that protects the CSD, protects the officers, and shows that the officer's version of the events was accurate. In that maybe 10% where it captures something that is inappropriate or outside policy, it then gives us hard evidence to deal with it, either in a proactive training manner or in a disciplinary matter if necessary. So regardless of this bundled package with the tasers, I could not more strongly support the need for current technology body-worn cameras for the officers, and they don't come any more highly recommended, I don't believe, than the Axon system. Just look at the difference in most of your cell phones in the last 4 years, and that's for communication. The body-worn cameras are for the protection of the district, the officers, and the public. So that's my piece on the body-worn camera side. The need to replace our cameras was recognized under Chief Malinen, and $7,500 was put into the budget for the replacement of body-worn cameras. And unfortunately, that was for a like system. That was for cameras without the storage, without the software management, without the benefits that go with actually having a system rather than just the cameras. The way we've entered into this bundled deal is when Sergeant Hurst was doing the research and contacted Axon. They mentioned that there was a significant price reduction if you bundled the purchase of the camera system with the taser system. Our officers currently do have tasers issued to them. I saw some social media questioning as to why Bear Valley officers would need tasers. It's actually the same reason police officers carry firearms. They carry pepper spray, they carry batons. The taser is a less lethal type of weapon. I know personally, I would rather use a taser to disable a combative suspect than have to use a baton and risk breaking an arm, breaking a leg, the types of injuries that go with a baton. I think tasers are accepted across the law enforcement industry as a viable, less lethal type of weapon for defense of the officer and for the control of a combative suspect. So the tasers we have are at that 4-year to 5-year range. What Axon offered was the purchase of new state-of-the-art tasers. Again, technology continues to advance. These tasers include the taser cam. Another question on social media was, why would you need a camera on the taser if you have a body-worn camera? And that's an excellent question. And the best reasoning I can give you is the body-worn cameras aren't activated until the officer activates the camera. The taser cameras are activated when the taser is switched on. They can be activated by sound, such as a gunshot. So the taser may capture footage that the body-worn camera doesn't. They may capture a different vantage point of the footage that the body-worn camera will not capture. For example, if you are using the taser and you are in close quarters, your body-worn camera may be going one way, the taser is going another way. So those are the best arguments that I can make for why the upgraded tasers are a viable consideration. What it does do is it does drive up the cost of the package. In doing some quick numbers before the meeting, if you take the taser system away from this bundle, what I could identify as taser components, it would reduce the total cost by about $21,279 over the 5 years. So that's a reduction of $4,000 a year from the currently quoted price. While the total cost is $67,779 over the 5 years, that breaks down to $13,356 per year. And what that does, that provides full warranty on all components, whether they're camera components or taser components, for the full 5-year period. It includes all software upgrades, firmware upgrades, everything to keep those tools up to speed for that full 5-year period. So I know I went on at length, but I was trying to address some of the questions that I know were being asked on social media and by board members. And with that, I will be happy to take questions.
Thank you for that comprehensive report, Chief Kermode. Members of the public, Christy.
Kathy Kinnear.
Hi, Kathy.
Hello. Thank you, Chief. That was an excellent report, and I appreciate you taking the time to also address some of the issues raised on social media. You know, as a resident who overwhelmingly supports our local police department, I have to say that this is a no-brainer for me to say that we should provide not only our officers, but our community with the best technology available. If we never use this technology because we're so safe, I don't care. I still think we should provide that level and quality of equipment for our officers and to protect ourselves from any liability over wrongful harm during an incident. So I think, you know, this is pennies on the dollar when you think about it at the macro level. And I wholeheartedly support the board moving forward with this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Appreciate that. More public.
Jiva?
Hi, Jiva.
Hello, Greg. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate so much what you just said, Chief, going into more detail and what Megan tried to do and fill in these things. And this is what I've said multiple times with these item agendas, that just add another page of this documentation of the verbiage of what you said. So we all understand, can read it and appreciate that. And then the other thing is what I've said also with the Sourcewell. Yes, they go out and they have their great bid systems, but maybe we would step down a bit in technology and it would still be sufficient. And I would really like to see that Bill would have that opportunity and the board would have the opportunity to compare them, like being said about, you know, buying a truck that's local other than through just Sourcewell. So I wanted to say those things. But I do really appreciate the added value of this technology. But again, as I read through it, you know, that it says that there's 10 gigabytes to evidence.com storage. What does that mean for the records retention? And my photos alone are over 200 gigabytes. So recording, you know, the video, I know there's details there if he's recording all day, but they only save, you know, what's just a few seconds or minutes before an incident, but it still adds up. So I'm kind of curious about that 10 gigabyte. If that's something additional, once again, it's like, oh, well, that's really not going to be enough. We're going to have to purchase more. And then also with this new technology, like Megan said, the policy technology or police technology is very active. So at the end of 5 years, is this technology not going to be usable? Do we have a quote after 5 years, what it would cost us to continue to get additional support from Axon? So I think these are all really important things that need to be addressed, or at least be made aware of, even if we approve this, which I don't have a problem with. It's just those are unknown things. And then it's like, why 5 units versus 6 or 5 units? You know, you'd still have a spare if only 2 or 3 officers were being on call at a time for an issue. Other than, I could see, maybe you can explain, Chief, like, is this really important to have, like, if we have an earthquake or big fire and you all are out there doing your job? I mean, 100%. Is this why we're going for 7? Because we have 7 positions. So those are some of the questions I had. And then what's being done with the old tasers? Are they being surplused? And the life expectancy, again, if you could address that, of these cameras in this whole system. Thank you.
Thank you, Jiva.
Okay, I have one more. Kevin Whiteside.
Good evening, Kevin. Welcome.
Hello, thank you. I just wanted to make a few comments here. First, I'll just start off by saying I definitely voice my full agreement on this. I think it makes complete and total sense. So I totally support it. I mean, as I see it, we look across the country in the last couple of years, police are under great pressure, both safety and reputation. And to me, with our local community officers, I want the best for them. I want the best for them personally and professionally. Their safety, their reputation. We see so much in the media that's negative, and that statistic was from Phoenix was awesome. To me, that's lawsuits that are avoided. that's bad reputation, that's avoided. And so I think, in my opinion, given the most highest quality, best tools, we can't minimize that. We can't skimp and go short. To me, we got to go the best. And in this, I'm looking, on the social media, and so read the quote and everything for this. I looked at Axon. I went to their website and did a pretty thorough search of that. And to me, the technology, the interconnectivity, you got the body camera, you got the taser, they talk to each other, the reporting. I mean, that to me is another thing, is the efficiency of reporting. It's all downloaded. You can capture everything. The body camera takes all the video recordings of the of the innocent people and gets their information. So I think that just adds the overall efficiency and effectiveness of the force. And I think this is the amount of money spent is small. I'm totally supporting of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
There are no
Any
more
more-
hands.
Any more comments from staff before I go to the board?
President Hom, would you like me to address some of Jiva's questions?
Yes, please.
All right, and first, thank you to Kathy, Kevin, and Jiva for your comments. Jiva, one of the things I forgot to mention, as far as the old cameras, those would be provided to the waste transfer station staff. They have some cameras right now, and you would say, why would the waste transfer station staff want to have body worn cameras? Well, to record the interactions over the illegal dumping. We have the video cameras that capture the big picture, but when the staff contacts a potential violator to warn them or advise them of the district rules, some of those folks become very unpleasant, and the body worn cameras, I think, provide a level of protection to the waste transfer staff, and also provides additional evidence for the administrative citations if it happens to be captured. So that is a potential use for the old cameras. Jiva asked the question, why 7 cameras? Well, our authorized strength with the chief, the sergeant, the officers, the part-time position, reserves, that's why 7. And why can't officers share a camera? We could do that, but we issue individual firearms for accountability. We issue individual pepper spray. We issue individual batons. Any of that critical equipment, we typically issue individually. That way there's better accountability. There's no question who broke it. If it's broken, there's no question of who's responsible for it. There's no question of who used that camera at a particular time. Additionally, after that camera's been in use for the 7 hours, it's going to need to go into the docking station and recharge itself for the next 12-hour shift. So 7 wasn't a random number. It's based upon the authorized staffing for the department. You also asked, what about after the 5 years? I don't think Axon's going to be willing to predict that far out as to what the cost of their equipment's going to be, or what the cost of cloud storage is going to be. So I don't have an answer to that one for you. As far as the storage capacity, that's based upon Axon's recommendation with potentially 7 cameras in use. They are the major player in the country, so they have good experience of knowing what storage capacity is going to be required per camera, given the activity level and the individual state's retention requirements. So that storage capacity was spec'd by Axon. And beyond that, if you had other questions, I didn't write them down. I apologize.
Thank you, Chief. I think we'll go to the board, starting with Director Grace.
Thank you, Mr. President. I won't be long-winded, just to say I think everybody knows where I stand on these types of issues. I absolutely support any effort to provide our officers with the very best equipment, the most modern equipment to do their job better. So I'll leave it at that, and that's all I had to say.
Thank you, sir. Director Jensen.
Well, that's good because I have a lot to say. I only see one purchase order here for this order, and District Code Section 1-8-7 says that for purchases over 25,000, we have to have multiple bids. It has to go out for publication. And are we skipping that somehow?
Well, I think in the case of Axon, they are the only company that provides this particular package and services. They are the only one with the relationship with Taser. They're the only ones to integrate the Taser cam with the Axon body camera. So there aren't competitive bidders that offer the same product.
But you don't have to do the progressive flow thing of bundling things. I mean, you can do separate contracts for tasers and separate contracts for body cams. There are a number of very good companies that make body cams, like Motorola and WatchGuard and Coban Command Center. There are a lot of really good companies that may not be this expensive, but this is exactly why we have district code saying that, you know, for large purchases like this, you've got to put it out to bid, and we haven't done that here.
Mr. President, and I was of the understanding too that this had been a Sourcewell vendor, so that they had put these kinds of items out and been responsive to a bid process from the state that would satisfy our requirements.
Where is that documentation? Because all I see is something from Axon.
I don't know that we have something specific on that. I would ask the chief.
Okay. So regarding the body cameras, look, you know, I did the job for a long time. I actually bought my own body camera. Gosh, well, I've been retired for over a year now, but I bought my own body camera in like 2015, 2016. Bought it on Amazon, $150. I would download it onto DVDs. I'd submit the DVDs as evidence, and I never had to worry about certifying things as this. I didn't need a specialist for forensics to certify that. You know, I'd show up to court, I'd have a DVD of whatever incident that I was testifying on. The court would play it, and that was it. So I just don't see how this is such an issue. I mean, what we, yeah, that's a larger department than what we're dealing with now. I mean, right now, you know, we don't need that kind of memory. I mean, I don't know how much video we're actually retaining when our officers only average 1 traffic stop a day, or 0.4 traffic stops a shift, or 0.005 felony arrests a day, or 0.039 misdemeanor arrests a day. How much video can we possibly be generating with that low of an activity?
Mr. Jensen, as a person who professionally investigates law enforcement misconduct as well as other workplace misconduct. Just because you've never been challenged on the validity of a video recording doesn't mean that is not an issue. Given one officer involved shooting, that an officer on his own personally owned camera that the department has no oversight for, the quality or the authenticity of that recording will be challenged. Whether it's challenged by the plaintiff in a civil case, whether it's challenged in a criminal case, but the higher the stakes in the particular incident, the more likely that everything is challenged. Fingerprint evidence is challenged, evidence collection is challenged, everything is challenged when the stakes are high. So, right, we've only had one officer involved, one fatal officer involved shooting in my memory since I've lived in this area. But all it takes is one incident like that, that there's a need to be able to authenticate what we're doing. Secondly, as a police chief, I would not support my officers going out and buying whichever camera they happen to choose, and they choose when to record and when not to record. They choose when to upload or book the evidence or when not to do so. The professional way to handle body-worn cameras is a system owned and managed and audited and monitored by the agency. So
I would agree with that, but isn't that what's happening right now? I mean, nothing is recorded until the officer presses the record button, and then the officer can also turn off the camera as well. Yes?
that's correct.
So, I mean, there's no difference there. I'm not saying go out and buy your own cameras. What I'm saying is the technology is there that is so much more affordable by buying other cameras from other vendors that do the same things. Motorola does the same things. Once you get in proximity to the server, it automatically downloads the video. So let's move on to the tasers. How old are our tasers?
As I said, in the 4 to 5 year range.
Because I noticed an expenditure on in the September registry of warrants to Axon for about $2,100. Was that not for tasers?
I don't remember that expenditure. I don't believe we have purchased any new tasers since I have been here.
Okay. How many times has a taser been deployed in Bear Valley?
Once that I'm aware of since I have returned as interim chief. Beyond that, I did not research the statistics on that.
Okay. So if that's the case, I mean, we're talking about very seldomly used objects, which is true from my experience too. I mean, I used my taser once in however many years I carried a taser. And I realize that's not the point. My point is, why are we going for top shelf, top of the line gear with all the bells and whistles when we could separate this out and just buy regular tasers? They work just fine, and just buy regular body cameras rather than have this humongous $67,000 expense that we haven't properly bidded out.
Well, again, I don't have an issue with other cameras. as long as they have the software management and they're of the same quality. I think earlier in my report, I addressed what are the advantages of an integrated system with the taser cams and the Axon cameras. You can certainly separate out the two items, and then we could certainly obtain bids on competing camera systems. But if we're going with the integrated proposal, there is no other vendor that provides the integrated system, at least to the best of my knowledge.
If that's true, we don't have to go with an integrated system. I mean, integrating tasers and cameras, it's not necessary. And then I'd just like to make one last point as far as the repurposing of the body cameras. I would, to the staff at the transfer station, I would really discourage that. Putting body cameras on civilians at the transfer station. I know what you're talking about. I've seen tempers get a little hot at the transfer station when employees approach people that they think are about to dump something that they're not supposed to. I think that would go up even more. That would raise their ire even more if they see someone with a body camera on. And honestly, it's hard to believe that the $50,000 that we spent already on the camera system at the dump isn't sufficient to capture violations.
I certainly understand what you're saying, Director Jensen, and obviously the ultimate use of the old cameras by the transfer station staff would not be my decision. They don't fall under my authority, my jurisdiction. It was provided as an option for something to do with the older cameras, but that would fall under our general services supervisor and the general manager to make a decision like that. It just provided as an option.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Director Quinn.
Good points made on both sides. I do believe that Mr. Whiteside's comment was apposite because the world is changing, and just because we have not had a serious incident history in Bear Valley Springs up till now doesn't mean we won't be facing it in the future. And upcoming Chief Suttles wants to keep it that way. So I'm inclined to say, let's give the police department whatever it can use effectively and keep perspective on this. I would ask that confirmation that transfer station staff will not also carry the old tasers along with the old body cams. Is that correct?
I don't believe that's ever been proposed, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Vice President Garland.
That's pretty funny with the tasers. Great comments, as Director Quinn pointed out. Mr. Whiteside, I agree with you 100%. Kathy Kinnear actually had some great comments in there, as well as Director Grace, about having the state-of-the-art type of equipment in place. And I've always supported safety. Is always on anything that I've done is always number one. The comments that Chief Kermode put it out about the integration of the system, I'm with you on that, and I would hope that others are there too. I call that the easy button. All right, if you have multiple flavors and you're trying to integrate them all together, which software goes with which, and I'm not pretending to know how easy this is or how difficult this is to download or to copy or to distribute. or if, as Director Jensen put out, if you get close to the, to the terminal, it starts recording itself later. So I don't know, but the integrated, one-stop shop, I'm all in on that one. The question that I do have for you, Chief, and I don't know, and I was, is the laser with the camera, is that something new to society? And if it is, are there other departments using it that you know of that has had good success with it? Or is, as Director Jensen put out, is just the body cam, an upgraded body cam sufficient enough to use with a, I'm going to call it, let's just call it a standard taser?
Thank you, Director Carlin. The taser cam itself is not new. It's been around for a few years. I think before I retired, they were available, and many agencies do use them. As far as whether the taser cam is necessary, in all sincerity, all I can say is it depends on the level of protection, the level of liability defense that the district chooses to have. Absolutely. Could we separate out this proposal, continue to do tasers as we do them, replace them or repair them or refurbish them as needed, and go separately with a body camera proposal? We absolutely can do that. And I have no doubt the board will support a quality body camera for the staff. The question is, how much documentation is enough? How much documentation is too much? And ultimately, that's a decision for the board. Certainly, one option would be to defer this and go out and get bids on body camera systems themselves and totally separate out the taser component. And at least our officers would then have state-of-the-art body cameras that have an appropriate software management system and all of that. One of the advantages I forgot to mention is the chief or a supervisor can access that cloud storage remotely after a critical incident and view the footage, which again, I don't know if Motorola or WatchGuard or the others do that. So the reason this proposal is here is it's an integrated proposal with the two systems. If it's the board pleasure, that can be separated out, because I can't give you an answer as to how much is enough when it comes to the liability side.
No, I appreciate the candor and sincerity on your answer, Chief. And I just want to restate that I'm with you. One case, one litigation where we've had to actually have proof, and we'll well pay for this many times over versus having to pay out for something that we didn't have the validity of proof for. So I support this proposal as well. Thank you, Chief.
But Director Carlin, I did want to bring up, actually, since the quote, I got an email last week that Axon has upgraded their firmware, and it is now capable of proximity uploading once it hits the Wi-Fi as well. So it doesn't have to go into the docking station to upload.
Yeah, anything that can go into the cloud, that's awesome. That's great technology. And I know somebody pointed out, how long can you keep these things? And I have no idea what the your daily I guess testing of the taser is. I don't know if you test it every day. I guess there has to be some type of way to test them to make sure that actually when you need to use them, that they're actually going to fire. But I don't, it's no different than, a cell phone, cell phone life, I'm going to say, since I'm still working, is maybe it seems like it's right after warranty of 2 years, it starts to fail. So you might get 2.5, 3 years out of a cell phone, and it's just because the technology is changing, and and they're not even supported. I have friends that have older, cell phones that are still working condition, but the manufacturers are not supporting those products. And I have no idea if that is as comparable to the equipment that you're purchasing, but my assumption is that if this is all cloud-based, it's all going to new technology. And like I said earlier, I support the integration, and I support this proposal. That's all I have, Director.
Thank you, sir. Another use for the old tasers might be issuing them to the members of the public when we go back to in-person meetings, and they could aim them at us board members. Never mind. Okay. I thank you for that wonderful conversation, the debate, all the points on both sides. I appreciate everyone's comments. I will see if any of my colleagues would like to push this forward with a motion.
I'll put the motion out there. I move the Board of Directors approve the 5-year agreement with Axon Enterprises Incorporated for the purchase of 7 Axon body-worn cameras, 7 camera-equipped tasers, and the associated equipment management, software and licenses, secure cloud storage, and equipment warranties.
Second.
I have a motion by Vice President Carlin, and I heard a second by Director Grace, I think.
Yes, sir.
Roll call vote, please, Ms. McEwen.
Director Grace,
Aye.
Director Jensen,
This is a violation of district code. No.
Director Quinn,
Aye.
Vice President Carlin,
Aye.
President Han.
Aye, motion carries 4-1 with Director Jensen in dissent. Item F, Foxtrot, adopt resolution 21/22-27 designated unclaimed property as surplus property and authorizing their disposal by sale or auction. Mr. Malinen.
Mr. President, members of the board, as noted in our staff report, the police department has moved forward to identify and designate surplus property that is no longer either in use or was evidence and is unclaimed, and we cannot find the true owner. And so the recommendation is that the board approve this surplus property list that is attached, and authorize us to proceed to dispose of these items. I would note that we intend to use the govdeals.com site again. We used it for the first and second time with the surplus street signs and found it to be very good for us. We don't have to move the items. Someone has to come get them. Any costs associated with the auction have been part of the buyer's costs. So, but for our staff time to prepare for the auction, it's a pretty cost-effective approach. So we would recommend adoption of the resolution designating these items as surplus and authorizing their disposal.
Thank you, sir. Members of the public.
Jiva,
Hi, Jiva.
Hello. Just to clarify, you said the approve a release order to auction the police department surplus property and inventory evidence. So that's two separate things. So the surplus property is what the PD does not need anymore, and also from the surplus PD vehicle. Just wanted to clarify that.
So
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. President, as noted in the resolution, these are items that have been seized, recovered, or found, and that after inventorying them, they are not needed as evidence. We cannot find the owners. They've been unclaimed. That is a category, I think, that she referenced of evidence. The other items were either CSD and or police department assets that are no longer necessary. They are all lumped together on Exhibit A attached to the resolution that identifies these items. And it is that list then that we would use for the auction.
Thank you, Bill. Anything more from the public, Christie?
No more hands.
My fellow colleagues on the board, Director Grace,
I had nothing, sir.
Director Jensen.
Nothing, sir.
Thank you, sir. Director Quinn,
I have nothing.
Vice President Carlin.
Nothing for me.
Just a quick note of the govdeals.com. I bought a Bear Valley Road street sign off of that. It was very easy to do. So that's a pretty cool way to get rid of this stuff. Board, what's your pleasure?
I move the Board of Directors adopt Resolution 21/22-27, designated the listed items as surplus property and authorizing their disposal by sale or auction.
Second.
Motion by Director Quinn, second by Vice President Carlin. Ms. McEwen.
Director Grace,
Aye.
Director Jensen,
Aye.
Director Quinn,
Aye.
Vice President Carlin,
Aye.
President Han.
Aye, motion carries 5-0. Item golf, approve amended job descriptions for Administrative Services Director and Assistant to the General Manager. Mr. Malinen.
Mr. President, members of the board, as you know, and I will inform the public if they were not aware, but our Administrative Services Director, Hamid Jones, has moved on to a different position. We have advertised for that vacancy, and in the course of preparing these documents that typically accompany a recruitment, we recognized that the existing job description for the Administrative Services Director needed updating, particularly in that it had under its functions overseeing human resources and the postal unit. As the board may know, the HR component has been administered by the assistant to the general manager. So we recognized that change needed to be made, and we wanted to make sure that this was as accurate as possible. I think it was from 2014 that it was last created. So attached to your packet are the red line changes that we propose to make to both the Administrative Services Director position as well as the assistant to the general manager to reflect what has been reality, certainly during my whole tenure, and I believe during my predecessor's tenure with respect to those two positions, and have them reflect how we do operate and who's responsible for HR or IT specifically. So stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you, sir. Any hands up in the public?
There are none.
Director Grace,
I had nothing to add, sir.
Director Jensen,
No comments.
Director Quinn,
Nothing, thank you.
Vice President Carlin.
Nothing for me.
I'm good. What do you think, board?
Mr. President, I move the Board of Directors approve amended job descriptions for Administrative Services Director and Assistant to the General Manager.
Second.
Motion by Director Grace, second by Vice President Carlin. Ms. McEwen.
Director Grace,
Aye.
Director Jensen,
Aye.
Director Quinn,
Aye.
Vice President Carlin,
Aye. Aye.
President Han.
Aye, motion carries 5-0. Item hotel, accept deed of easement for Equestrian hiking trail at 28950 Bear Valley Road. Mr. Davis, your name is on this one.
Thank you, President Hahn, and I am fortunate tonight to have an item that won't cost you anything. We have a generous offer from the property owners here, James Atwood and Kathleen Martin, to formalize a trail easement across their property. There actually is a trail crossing their property, but it's never been formalized. So they recently moved to the valley. Apparently they're horse people and were contacted by the BVSHA about dedicating this trail, and they have agreed to do so. I want to, in addition to thanking the property owners, thank Susan Mustafa of the BVSHA for working with us and coordinating on the easement. The organization also paid for the survey to be done, and the district's contribution was our drafting of the deed, which the property owners have agreed to. We understand that there may be future easements coming before the board as well, and we kind of worked through some issues with the BVSHA on the process for doing this, but they've been resolved. And again, this is formalizing something that is a good resource for the community, and will ensure that what's called apparently the fire station trail has this new connection that's been formalized. So that concludes my report. If there are any questions.
Thank you, sir. Any hands up in the public on this one?
There are none.
Director Grace.
I had a totally unimportant administrative question, and that is who records, Don, who records this? Do you get all the signatures and take it to the recorder's office, or how does this get implemented?
Yes,
Okay.
they will come in and sign. We have all the documents. We just need them to sign it, have it notarized, and the district will file it for recordation.
Perfect. Yeah,
Which
just
also saves recording fees too.
great. Just informational. That's all I had.
Thank you, sir. Director Jensen.
No questions.
Thank you, sir. Director Quinn.
Only a thank you to Mr. Atwood and Ms. Martin for their donation.
Thank you, sir. Vice President Carlin.
Well, I agree with you, Director Quinn. That's very nice of them to actually grant that easement. So no other questions for me. Thank you.
I echo that gratitude towards those homeowners. Appreciate that a lot. Board, what do you think? Should we move this forward?
Move the board.
Take it.
Okay, I move the board accept the proposed deed of easement and further authorize staff to take all such actions necessary to cause the deed of easement to be recorded in the office of the Kern County Assessor's Recorder.
Second.
Motion by Director Carlin, second by Director Jensen, and roll call vote, please. Ms. McEwen.
Director Grace,
Aye.
Director Jensen,
Aye.
Director Quinn,
Aye.
Vice President Carlin,
Aye.
President Hahn.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Thanks again to those property owners. Item India, schedule special meeting of the Board of Directors, Mr. Malinen.
Mr. President, members of the board, as noted, we have a couple of significant projects that are moving forward to our infrastructure committee. The first one has to do with the water system assessment. It's a request for proposals that will further our understanding of how to tackle the underground water main needs for the community. And so that is something that's been in need for a number of years. And so we're making progress, and hopefully we'll have a satisfactory RFP for our infrastructure committee, which, by the way, was supposed to meet on, I believe it was the 17th, but it's been moved to the 18th, next Friday. And the second item was putting out some request for bid for the rehabilitation of about 5 of our potable water wells. And these have been identified as those that we think can be rehabilitated successfully. And with that, we could improve our own valley water supply. So those 5 have actually been in our capital, our CIP, and our budget. So we've identified the funding for them, but we are looking at packaging them up and getting a bid. So part of both of these 2 projects will go to the infrastructure committee, after which we would bring them to the board. They're significant projects and have significant impacts for our community. What we were hoping to do is save a couple of weeks if we can. So what we've suggested is that on Tuesday, the 22nd, if the board could hold a special meeting on the assumption that both of these items have been recommended by the infrastructure committee for your consideration and approval, that you could approve them at that 22nd meeting, and we can get them out on the street for the engineering firms or the well rehabilitation companies to respond to us and save ourselves a couple of weeks anyway. And so that's what we were asking for.
Thank you, sir. Members of the public?
Jiva?
Hi, Jiva.
Hello, thank you for that. Since these are such significant projects, and with the COVID mandate toppling now, wouldn't it be really nice if you could postpone this to a regular meeting when the residents may have an opportunity to attend and start the discussion there before it goes to the infrastructure? I understand it's going to go there and there'll be more opportunity, but in 2 weeks, we may not have the opportunity to attend in person. So that's my question, Bill, if there's a possibility or the board to postpone this to the regular one in the name of 2 weeks and us, having the opportunity to show up. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Jiva. Any other members of the public?
There are none.
I think Bill expressed the urgency as to why it needs to be a special meeting. We don't take that decision lightly. Director Grace, do you have comments?
Just a quick question, Bill. I think you have emphasized it, but I just want to be crystal clear. These are the only items you anticipate for that agenda?
Yes.
Okay. All right, that's all I have.
Director Jensen.
Nothing, sir.
Thank you, sir. Director Quinn.
I have nothing.
Vice President Carlin.
Nothing for me.
None for me. Board, shall we have this special meeting?
Move the Board of Directors schedule a special board meeting for Tuesday, February 22nd, 2022 at 10 a.m.
Second.
Motion by Vice President Carlin, second by Director Quinn. Ms. McEwen.
Director Grace.
Aye.
Director Jensen.
Aye.
Director Quinn.
Aye.
Vice President Carlin.
Aye.
President Han.
Aye, motion carries 5-0. That concludes our action items. Section 12 is information and discussion items. First is board comments. Brings me to Director Grace. What is on your mind this evening?
Sad to say, not much, sir. So I don't really have anything to add. A good long meeting here. So I'll leave it to others to comment.
Thank you, sir. Director Jensen, what's on your mind tonight?
I have nothing to add.
Yes, sir. Director Quinn.
I would caution Director Grace to call this a long meeting. He has no history here.
Right? Definitely.
I accept that, Director.
After midnight. You haven't been to a midnight one yet.
I have no other comment.
Thank you, sir. Vice President Carlin.
I don't have anything to add.
Neither do I. Staff reports, department heads, finance. Who's got that duty tonight with Hamid Jones gone?
Well, Mr. President, members of the board, I will start, I guess, with that and say that our staff here, we have Perla Fichter, who is our accountant, in attendance. Should you have any specific questions, between Perla and myself and Christy, Perla's carrying the bulk of that weight, I will say. We are continuing to move forward with all that needs to be done with respect to our financial administration. That said, we have before you the 6-month financial statements, and we're prepared to answer any questions if you have them. Just my general reaction is we continue to be in a solid condition and on track relative to our budget.
Thank you, sir. Members of the public,
There are none.
Director Grace,
Nothing for me, sir.
Director Jensen,
No questions.
Director Quinn,
Nothing.
Vice President Garland.
Thank you, Perla, for putting stuff together.
Yeah, good. Public Works report is next.
Mr. President, members of the board, the report is before you. We have myself and our division supervisors available to answer any question you might have.
Thank you, sir. Are there any hands up in the public?
Yes. Jiva.
Hi, Jiva.
Hello, thank you. Somewhere in there, the guardrail replacement was mentioned to be about $10,000. And I know there was a question previous meeting regarding the cost and who would pay for it. So that's one thing, if you have an answer, that we're going to be reimbursed by the person having the accident or their insurance. And then I'd like to ask again that the reports for the dumpsters being removed would not be done in a sentence-like structure. It would be done in a table that showed month by month, because it's really good feedback that we see that we're recycling more and how we're managing our trash. And then the third thing is the 15-inch hole depth of the hole that I reported a few months ago. A gold spike is still there. And we talk about minimizing our legal liabilities. And that hole is there that anybody could step in, or an animal, and hasn't been covered. So I'm wondering about the condition of when that will be addressed. I know there's lots of priorities, but I still think 15-inch deep hole that somebody would step in would break their leg. So I appreciate those responses. Thank you.
Thank you, Jiva.
There are no more hands.
Okay, thanks, Christy.
Mr. President, we certainly are searching and or expecting to be reimbursed for a guardrail repair from the individual responsible. Reports for a transfer station activity. We'll give that some more thought. I'm trying to image what we're looking for. And I had thought we had addressed that gold spike, but our crews are on this. And so we will address that tomorrow, please. Make sure it gets taken care of. I had thought it had been, and that was my understanding. So if I'm wrong, I apologize for that.
Okay, appreciate that. No more hands. Dr. Grace, anything on Public Works?
Oh, just a real quick question on the photos of the storm drainage. Obviously, a lot of cleanup around the inlets and outlets. I presume the culverts themselves are being cleaned out of any dirt or other material. Is that accurate to say?
Yes, sir. We are starting to work on that.
Okay.
Flushing them out too.
Great, great. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, sir. Director Jensen.
And no questions.
Director Quinn.
We think we still have a down payment on a slope mower that I don't think we ever got the remote control slope mower. And I was wondering if some point we're either going to proceed with it or call it a loss and be done with it.
Yes.
All of the above, or what?
Yes, it's not over yet. I will say I have referred this to legal and moving forward.
Okay.
So I don't have a specific answer to A or B of your options, Director Quinn.
Okay, thank you.
Vice President Garland.
Nothing for me. Thank you.
All right, Public Safety Report. Chief Kermode, probably.
It is my great pleasure to provide what I hope is the very last public safety report that I ever have to present.
You hope.
You have before you both the December 2021 Public Safety Report and the January 2022 Public Safety Report. The timing worked out that I could get things caught up and leave the new chief with a clean slate. The information is in both reports, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Chief. Any hands up in the public?
Yes. Kara Cooper?
Hello, Kara.
Hey, how you doing? Anyway, Chief, thank you for your service and all your great knowledge on safety and all the matters that you've helped us with. And good luck on the rest of your retirement. Thank you.
Thank you, Kara.
Thanks, Kara. Any more hands up in the public?
Shiva?
Shiva?
Yes, thank you also, Chief. I ditto what Kara said. I do appreciate it. With the conversation that was going on about the body cameras, a couple of points were brought up that I hadn't even thought about. And the reason for the cameras, thinking we're such a low crime here, is that you go and you support Stallion Springs and Tehachapi and other neighborhood communities. And so I was wondering, because I see your report here and I just always thought that these were all incidents here. So is any incidents that you support or activities documented in the activity list here? Or are they documented elsewhere? Or so I was wondering about that and what type of incidents that were out and supporting them. Because I know Stallion Springs comes over here oftentimes and supports. So that was my question regarding that. And I really appreciate it. We appreciate your responses to everything and the details you're willing to share. Thank you, Chief, for your service here.
Thank you, Jiva. And yes, when you look at the third page of the public safety report, you will see AODs, which stands for Assist Other Department. So that third page will tell you how many we did in the month. And then if we prepared a report in support of that, then it would show up under non-criminal reports. Sometimes we just go and assist and stand by. Sometimes we take action. We may assist with a search. We may handcuff somebody. So then we would document not as our own criminal offense. So it would be a non-criminal report. And then we would ship that to the home agency. So you can track those each month.
Thank you, sir. Any more hands in the public?
No more.
Director Grace.
Just to say thank you for the report, Chief, and thank you for your second tenure to carry us through this interim period, and best wishes to you.
Thank you.
I definitely look forward to Mr. Suttles' report next month.
Thank you, sir.
Director Jensen.
Just a couple of questions. For the December activity, there was a press release, excuse me, a press release on an arrest for drugs and a concealed dirk or dagger. I was just wondering why it merited a press release. I mean, it seemed like a pretty mundane, everyday incident.
Well, I didn't initiate that request because the police activity was seen and people apparently were questioning on social media what had gone on. I was approached by our media relations person, and she felt it'd be appropriate to put information out so that we could stop the questions. So that would be the reason for the release.
Okay, and the same with the photograph. I mean, I would assume she got the photograph from you guys.
Right, it was done in conjunction, so if we were gonna put out a release about the arrest, then it would be appropriate to include the photograph.
Was the ski mask and the police scanner appropriate to be put in that photograph? I mean, it didn't involve any of the charges.
Well, it was part of what was seized as evidence, so I don't see any problem. It's full transparency. We made an arrest. This is what was seized in the arrest.
What were those evidence of?
Well, you can certainly speculate, but they're evidence of potential criminal behavior. Ski masks and scanners often can be used in conjunction with committing a crime.
That's possible, but certainly there were no charges with that, and by themselves they're legal to possess. I just, them being there just served to scare people. I mean, I don't understand the purpose of putting that out there. And let's say it was evidence of another crime that maybe another agency is investigating, you know, that makes it all the more inappropriate to put those out there publicly to, you know, poison any possible witnesses that, you know, may be dealing with someone with similar items on a similar crime.
Well, I disagree with you, Mr. Jensen. In municipal policing, arrests are commonplace. Apparently in this situation, because of the visibility, it generated questions from the public. A factual press release was issued, including a photograph of items seized. And I disagree that there's anything inappropriate about that. And he wasn't alleged to have been committing car burglaries or anything else. But the simple fact, in light of what's going on in our surrounding communities of cars being broken into every night, I don't see that there's any problem with members of the public knowing that there is a person cruising around our community with an illegal knife and illegal drugs and a ski mask and a police scanner. I think that's full transparency. And even though I didn't write the release, I stand by it 100%.
Okay. My next question is, are you familiar with a Facebook page called Bear Valley Police Officers Association?
I am, and we took steps. They posted information about a found shotgun, and that was corrected, and then an official CSD release was put out on trying to locate the owner of that shotgun.
Okay, I'm just wondering, who's the administrator of that page?
That I am not sure of.
Because it purports to be, you know, a police agency, assuming the Bear Valley Police Department. I mean, can anyone just name a page and not be affiliated with the department?
I thought, I haven't gone to the page myself, but I thought it was identified as the Bear Valley Police Officers Association page.
Right, but who would be administrating that page?
Well, that would be their First Amendment right for their association to have a Facebook page, and I do not know who the administrator is.
Well, sure they could, but they'd also need permission of the department and the district to use their logo and pictures of their cars, right?
Well, that is correct. So admittedly, I have not gone to their Facebook page. So if they're using the department logo and they're using our department cars, then that's something we need to follow up on.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing else.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Director Quinn.
Nothing, just an earnest wish for Jeff in his retirement that we won't have to yank him yet one more time.
You hear that, Dan?
Thank you, sir.
Vice President Carlin.
Yeah, thank you for your services, Chief. Dan, I would hold one of the old cameras and old tasers because you never know when we'll need a substitute chief. Yeah.
Thank you.
Jeff, as long as I've known you, which is a long time, you've never refused to answer the call of duty when somebody needs you. You step up, and that means a lot to me, and it speaks of your wonderful character. And I appreciate all your service to Bear Valley and other cities around this great nation of ours. General Counsel report.
I do not have a report this evening, Mr. President, but I would like to join members of the board and the public in just thanking Chief Kermode for his service. I've worked with him for many years now, against his wishes at times, but his professionalism has been exemplary, and having people of his caliber, I can tell you, because of the limited interactions I've had to have with him, huge savings to the districts in terms of legal costs for the way he's managed the department, and Chief Malinen before him. And I look forward to working with our new chief, Dan Suttles, as well. So thank you.
Questions for General Counsel from the public?
There are none.
Director Grace.
I had nothing, sir.
Director Jensen. I think you said nothing. I didn't see you unmute. It's okay. Director Quinn.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was speaking. Sorry.
Yes, okay.
Any updates on our suit versus Wildan?
I will give you a confidential memo on that, but things are progressing.
Okay.
I spoke with Mr. Wolfsburg actually a couple days ago. So he requested that actually he provide a summary of what's been going on. It's been very active, and there are things to report, but those are confidential items because of the nature of the litigation. But thank you.
Understood. And then I was on the Kern County Courts website, and I noticed that former GM Edmonds doesn't have any more future court dates. I'm wondering if that means his case was dismissed?
His case was dismissed, and it's in the process of being refiled.
Okay.
Is my understanding.
Okay. Thank you. Nothing else.
Both good questions. Director Quinn.
I have nothing.
Vice President Garland.
Nothing.
And I have nothing. Future agenda items. Ms. McEwen, anything come up?
Got the general manager report.
Oh, thank you. General Manager report. He's talked enough, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Why we have the old tasers.
If you guys put up 3 hands, I can stop. Anyway, the first couple of items on my list, Mr. President, members of the board, were the Infrastructure Committee. That meeting again was moved to the 18th at 9 o'clock. We also, because of, and I want to put a shout out to our directors who are pursuing some training that is part of the Special Districts Leadership Foundation. I think I've talked about this before, but to the extent that our directors are taking that training, it I think is a win-win. Number one, it's intended to help develop our elected officials as leaders and to have them be better at what they're doing as elected officials. But it also helps to elevate our district with the District of Distinction. That is a recognition by an outside agency that we are doing things that are kind of best practices for our public. So thank you for your attendance at those things. But I understand it's on the 16th and the 17th, and I believe they're virtual classes. So for the public, our members aren't going somewhere. But That means we've moved our finance committee to the 23rd at 9 o'clock and our administration committee to Wednesday, the 23rd at 11 o'clock. So we already talked about the water RFP and the well rehabilitations. Next up is the tree grant, which I kind of hit before, but the newest addition to that is we did in fact make an application for a CALFIRE fuel reduction grant, the same grant that we were awarded 2 years ago, for the same area of our CSD boundaries. We have used tract 3461, which is a pretty big tract, and it is up at the top of the mountain at Deer Trail and so on. And so as our logger and forester have moved through, as I explained earlier, with all the visitations and the listings of properties that could use treatments, we see that there is essentially an equal sized amount of properties to treat. So this grant is about the same as the one 2 years ago. We won't know until June if it will be awarded, but we're excited about the idea that we could continue this project. As I think referenced earlier, I think our team has done a good job, and I think it would only get better the second go around, talking about lessons learned as an example. So that is new. The entry gate project, two aspects of it. The first one is putting in the new RFID amenity card reading equipment. And so that should be underway here shortly, at which time then the BVSA will begin, and I am sorry, I don't know their schedule, but they will begin to issue in whatever process amenity cards with the RFID chip in them. That chip, when used at the visitor gate, will open the gate for our residents. And in the course of doing that, we will transition away from a windshield sticker. That will no longer get you into our community. You must have then the amenity card. And obviously there's transitions and notifications, and we'll do all of that. But at its core, that's what it is. It'll be two readers, a small lower one and one a little bit higher for people in a little taller vehicles. But that's going to be underway soon. The other piece of this is more on the gate rehabilitation project. So we have had the engineering subbed out the flying of that corridor, and I believe the surveyors have been out there. So we're kind of awaiting the first report of what they see for that corridor that would go from Cumberland all the way down to Cummings Valley Road. We have been receiving dozens of applications for the Administrative Services Director position, and we are in the process of reviewing those for the next step of the process. We talked about the signs. The equestrian signs are up for auction on govdeals.com. So for our residents, particularly our equestrians out there, please take a look at those. Those are the real deal, the authentic vintage collectible signs. We have received our second of the three new work trucks for public works. So the new truck, these are the 550s, has a new plow, new spreader. Maybe thankfully we may not need it again this year, I'm hoping, but the third one should be close behind. We talked about the jacaranda guardrail. We do have our level of support for Field. I think the board's familiar with Field, and maybe others are too, that they provide kind of a job opportunity, and they have received a fuel reduction grant for common areas. They're wrapping up their CEQA right now, and then we'll know where they could work, not only in Bear Valley, but they're also going to support Stallion Springs, Golden Hills, and Alpine CSD. And now they're going to go for another grant, which would do right-of-way mowing as a fuel reduction. So we're supportive of that as well, and hope that they get that. We're continuing with our wastewater treatment plant permit. We have three pieces of that: a Title 22 report, transitioning to a general order on our effluent, and then the ephemeral study, which looks pretty good, that we are in fact going to be able to change from the type of permit and some of the regulatory issues to something more flexible and beneficial to us. The water system wells 31 and 32 have passed their tests, but we also have to get approval from the state. So the tests have been submitted. These are potable wells, folks, that we can put into our system and be that much less dependent on Cummings Valley wells and the effect of reductions in allocation that comes from the state while we're in a drought. And Lakeville wells, we're still working on finishing those up. 10 should be done, if it's not already, pretty quickly. 9 is going to take a little more remedial work. There's something stuck on that we're working to get unstuck and get it rehabilitated. 10 is pretty much done, so that we should have that available to put into Four Island Lake. And with that, I will complete my report, Mr. President.
Thank you, sir. Are there comments from members of our public?
There are none.
Director Grace.
Bill, did I hear you to say that Field is obtaining some sort of CEQA approval?
Yes, yeah.
What do they need? Isn't it basically just maintenance?
Well, I'm not quite sure what they're having to do. It may be describing the parameters of, their grant. So as an example, they, as I recall, were looking to do some clearing, and that clearing could be shrubs, could be trees or branches or whatever fuel in areas in these CSDs that are common areas. So that could be around our fence line on the perimeter as an example. So, their CEQA process, I'm not familiar with it. I haven't seen it, but I understand they've been in it's, doing it, and they should be wrapped up. So I'm not sure if that helps you, but that's
It sounds like it's more related to the grant and the parameters of the grant. So yeah, that was just interesting. So that's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you, sir. Director Jensen.
Just a couple of things. You mentioned the card reader for the visitor lane at the gate. Can you give us an idea of approximately how much it's going to cost to install that and support it?
I'll try. I think the bulk of the equipment, so it should have a new gate and the readers. My recollection was that was about $5,000. We are going to use an integrator. This is someone that kind of works between us, kind of lay people, and the company that does all the programming and so on. That's about $5,000, so about $10,000, I believe. So ongoing maintenance, if you will, I don't see much in that other than when people hit our gate, we have to go down there and put it back up. That's about it.
Okay. And then can you speak to how Engagement HQ is working out?
I not as well as Ms. Clark, if she can tell you that. My recollection of seeing some of the participation, 350 to 400 people perhaps. We've started a Q&A as a means, and there are so many social media sites. We are hopeful that people will begin to use that site as well as our website, but that site in particular to get up to speed on the various projects that we're doing or going to be doing, and even to ask questions. So I do know they've had activity on the Q&A part that she then can monitor much more easily. It'll send her a notification, and she can get people's questions answered much more readily than trying to follow Facebook or something.
Okay. It's my understanding that the Bare Necessities newsletter that was going out to about 1,000 people or so is only going to the people that are involved in the Engagement HQ now. So we would have lost about 600 or so subscribers to the newsletter. Is that about right?
Yeah, that's probably round number. Yeah, that's probably accurate.
Okay. I just spitballing here, but since we eliminated the communications committee, maybe we could have Megan in staff reports at some point, maybe in between department heads and general counsel, just to, give us an idea of district outreach and what's going on communication wise.
We'll talk about that. Sounds good.
Okay. Nothing else.
Thank you, sir. I see communication specialist in the meeting here with her hand up. Is that you, Megan?
It is. I'm sorry. My camera on my laptop isn't working. When we ended MailChimp, we had roughly 940 subscribers. When we first began sending out the newsletter from MailChimp, we had an open rate of between 80 and 90%. But over the past 3 years, that open rate, people who are actually reading the newsletter, had dropped down below 50%. So in effect, half of the people we were sending the newsletter to weren't interested in reading it anyway. When we began the shift from MailChimp over to the new site and hosting the newsletter there, we sent a lot of notifications. I began talking to people about moving over to Engagement HQ in November, again in December. And then I sent out reminder emails. Hey, we're moving platforms. If you're interested in continuing to receive the newsletter, please go subscribe. And through MailChimp, I could see not who, but how many did not open that email. And I was able to send another to all of the people who had not opened it. So each time we did this, and we did this 3 times in a row, we would get a spike of subscribers on the new site. When we sent out our first newsletter from the new site, we had a 94% open rate, which tells me that everybody who's receiving the newsletter is actually interested in the content. And that's something I pay attention to. I would have to look back to see how quickly we got subscribers when we initially started the newsletter. But if my memory is correct, the 450 some subscribers we have now on the new site is right in line, if not a little better than the adoption rate we had initially. And we do have a lot of people asking questions in the Q&A. The questions, most of them are not what I would consider for public consumption. It's not something we would want to have in an FAQ for other people to reference. It's more like, what about this specific pothole or this specific mailbox? Those are not things that are going to age well. So I answer those privately, but people are using it. I'm very happy with it, and our residents seem to be very happy with it too.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. My concern with restricting the newsletter is that you move it to a platform that is itself more restrictive. I mean, you have to go on there, you have to provide a lot more information than just an email address to actually be involved in the platform, as opposed to the newsletter where, you just send an email address and you get the letter. That's my only concern with that.
I understand what you're getting at, but registering on the site is not required to receive a newsletter. If somebody goes to one of our project pages and clicks the box that says, I want to follow this project, they automatically get the newsletter as well.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Director Quinn.
I have nothing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Vice President Carlin.
Thanks for the report, Bill, and that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, and I don't have anything to add either. Now, since it's in the future a little bit, could we do the future agenda items?
I actually do not have anything. So nothing came up in the meeting. We'll work on it for next month.
All right, sounds good. In that case, without objection, I will call for adjournment. The next regular board meeting is March 10th of 2022. Special shout out to our new chief of police. Thank you all for attending. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Everybody have a great night.
Good night.
Night.
Good night, everyone.
Not all.
Thanks, Megan.